2012 was a low point for me in real estate. I had, for the previous 3 years, I had closed in 09, 10, and 11, I had closed at least 20 transactions, was doing fine, was making a living. And then for some reason in 2012 that I didn't really know, business really slowed down. And I ended up only having 11 transactions that year. And it was a crossroads for me, and it was a crossroads for my family. My wife and I talked about what we need to do. Do we need to, do I need to find a different career? I put my resume out for a couple other things so that I could have some steady income. I wasn't excited about going back to a 9-to-5 job, but if you have 2 kids and a wife who are depending on you, you have to make some sacrifices and do what you have to do. Because it was so bad last year, when I came here, I was, we were living off of savings. That was when I had to email my dad and say, hey, can I borrow some money so that I can make it to this next closing that's coming up. And I remember writing him and saying, I can't believe I have to do this. I'm sorry I have to ask you for money. I think I told him I felt like a loser because, I mean, I was, at the time I was 34, and was having to ask my dad for money. And you're the husband and the father, and you're supposed to be the provider. And he told me, no, you're not a loser, you're not fine. And I remember going in, and at that point I thought, okay, if real estate's gonna work, I can't sit around and think people are gonna think I'm a nice guy and they're just gonna throw business out to me. I have to be more proactive. This year, I've got money in my checking account. I've got a business account set up to pay my business fees. Because we are doing so well financially, my wife and I have talked about adoption for a couple of years. And especially last year, I said, there's no way we're going to be able to do this. I have $4,000 set aside to start for an adoption fund. I opened that account last month. One of my goals at the start of this year was to go to Disney World, to pay cash for it. We were at such a low point last year, and when I was setting these goals, I thought, what would be a great thing, a great goal to shoot for that is fun and happy? And the happiest place on earth is Disney World. So we had taken my kids there 3 years ago. My daughter was 4 at that time. My son was 18 months old. They didn't remember it at all. So we decided we would set that goal. And my goal was to go in Thanksgiving so that I could give myself enough time, because I thought, well, we'll see, how well this works out. And in March, I had an old client who's a Disney travel planner, and I said, we want to go. How much is this going to cost? And she told me how much it was going to cost, and I thought, that's a lot of money. How will I make this happen? Thanks to all the work I've been putting in since things had started, in May and June, it really paid off. And we actually had to put an initial deposit down in May, which I did. I was able to write a check. No credit cards required. And then in July, after a great June, which was my best month ever, I made more than my dad, who's a doctor, that month, which was a big deal because he does pretty well. And he told me I out-earned him for that month. In July, I said, hey, we're just going to go ahead and pay off the Disney trip. And we were able to pay cash. And what was neat was last week, we just got back this week. So last week, we're there at Disney World, and there were a couple times when I looked over to my wife, or she looked at me, and she said, hey, or I would say to her, hey, what's cool about this is our parents aren't paying for this. Nobody else is paying for this. We paid for this. Hey, that meal, I paid for that. I didn't have to borrow anything for that. I didn't have to depend on mom and dad to take the kids and the grandkids. We decided we were going to do this, and we made it happen. Being a six-figure agent is a good feeling.